Welcome back to Heaving Bosoms, a podcast where two best friends recap and review romance novels each week and give you a peek into our friendship. This week, actually, before we get into the book, I want to share the amazing efforts of one of Erin and my former students. We used to be speech coaches, and she was on the team with us. She's currently in Ecuador, working at a safe house for victims of human trafficking and sex slavery. This is the first place that these victims, often children, can feel safe and begin the long road to recovery. The house she works in is also one of only 2 facilities like this in the entire country, so it's pretty crucial. They just suffered some cuts to government funding, and we all have the opportunity to help them keep it open while they secure longer-term solutions. Please visit gofundme.org/giveherwings and donate if you can. The price of just one new novel on Kindle would so help. I'll also put all of the info into the episode notes and blast it on social media, so I'll try to keep it as accessible as possible. All right, so now let's do what we really came here for, huh? We need to hit the streets of London and get steamy with Firelight by Kristen Callihan. Okay, hi, Erin.
Hey, Mel.
How are you?
Great. How are you?
Wonderful.
Ready for Firelight? Finally, It's happening.
So ready.
Wait a minute. Wait. We haven't even talked about the biggest thing that's going on in the world right now.
No, I know. I'm so sorry.
I'm not ready to talk about this book yet.
I know. You have a new roommate.
Oh, my God. So, you guys, we took on another roommate, a renter, who's not paying us any fucking rent, just like Rooster. Her name is Goat. Rooster and Goat, best friends forever. She's a floofer. She's silent. She just sits and looks at you, which is the best kind of dog. And she's such a fur ball, and she chases her tail, and she's just the best dog.
And she jumps like Rooster. A goat.
Oh, yeah, and she jumps up on all fours like a goat. And then when she sits, her little feet turn out like a little duck. Oh, she's just
And she doesn't walk around shouting #MAGA.
Oh, my God. I don't know. It's like I was telling you earlier, she hasn't said a word since she's got here.
Right. She barks like
Rooster walks around being like men's rights and stuff because she's really conservative lately. But it's honestly awful. But anyway, so Rooster is all talking about her debt and like these businesses she's trying to start up, and she's just chatty Cathy. Mm-hmm. But Goat has not said a word. So we'll see. We'll see what her personality's like.
I'm really excited. I mean, but Rooster, I don't know if you can handle another dog with the personality of a rooster. Like, I don't know if any other dog will stack up your Tupperwares and attempt to sell them.
Rooster tried to have a Tupperware party with all my Tupperwares. I came home. All my Tupperwares were out. Rooster had just lost a record deal, and she was filing for bankruptcy. And I was like, David, what are all these Tupperwares about? And he was like, oh, I didn't put these out. This must have been Rooster. And I was like, what? And then he directed me to Rooster's Google Plus page where it announced that she was having a Tupperware party and she's selling all our Tupperwares. Yep. And I said, hey, Rooster, how about I sell the heat vents because those are her favorite things? Mm-hmm. And she said, try it, bitch. It's your house. Anyway, she makes a big show of hating Goat when we're here. But then we went out to dinner last night and we tuned into the security cameras to see like if they were fighting or if they were both alive. And they were both curled up together in an armchair. So like that bitch loves Goat. She's just trying to, when I'm here, they kind of fight over me a little bit. But
I hear that. I would fight over you too. Mm-hmm. Look out, David. I've never been in the same state as you.
Oh my God, that wedding's going to be so awkward.
It really is. God. I'm going to be hip checking David out of the way all over the place.
And imagine if Rooster's there. There's nothing more than I want for Rooster to be at my wedding because she's my best friend. But she can't handle it. She's one of the worst behaved dogs I've ever met in my life.
You can't walk around with a snaggletooth that majestic and expect to be curtailed, madam.
We did everything when I got her. She was like 5 or 6 when I got her. We went to obedience school. We went to Reactive Rovers 12-week intensive course. She still barks her face off every time a car drives by. There's nothing we can do. Like, I did everything. And somebody's listening and they're like, well, if you give her a piece of cheese when she did or a spray bottle or blah, blah, blah. And bitch, I've tried it. Whoever you are, that's like, whoever just like rushed to their computer to compose an email about how to train Rooster is wrong. Whoever you are, it's wrong.
Have you done that thing where you sit with your back to her so that she
How
knows
dare you?
that you're the leader of the pack? Have you done that?
No.
Yeah. So I thought it was really cute when Michael's dog Flop like got to know Ember. Because first of all, Flop did not accept me into the pack until I was carrying Michael's spawn. Like, until I smelled like Michael was in me, like, literally, Flop was not at all about it. So, I mean, he wasn't, like, anti-me. He was just very apathetic, if you will. But once I got pregnant, he was like, Mr. Sit right by me, Mr. Do all the things. And then he met Ember. And once Ember was, like, sitting, firmly sitting up and being interactive and stuff at around 6 or 7 months, Flop would come over. I'm sorry, do you want me to say half a year?
Yeah. 0.5 year.
Because that is less.
Or, you know what? 0 works. 0 years. Not quite year. Because you know what I don't do? I don't walk around being like, I'm 31 and 7 months. I don't do that.
I can't with you. Because you're obtuse. And you refuse. You refuse. Okay. So
refuse.
You refuse to be educated. Okay. So Flop would come over to Ember and like come right up to him and put his butt like right near Ember's lap with his back to him. And I was like, oh, Michael, Flop is like snuggling in the way that he can with Ember. And Michael was like, no, he's showing dominance right now. He's showing him that, sure, you can pet me. I'm going to let you pet me. But we are not equals. I am above you in the pack chain. So if Rooster comes over and puts her back to you, you shouldn't be petting her because she's asserting dominance over you.
She asserts dominance. Like, she doesn't need to come over and sit with her back to me. She just walks by and she's like, fuck you, bitch. Like, that's like, she doesn't need to.
She's
like,
a little aggressive. Yeah,
she's very vocal.
Yeah. Right. With her human words.
Right.
No, I hear that.
So, yeah, that's my big news. Goat the dog.
Yeah, Goat the dog. Although I'm a little upset that she's not. Nope, she's always going to be goats to me. Plural goats.
Yeah, because we went through a lot of different names. One of those names was Oats. And then we were between goat and oats. And then Melody thought of goats, plural.
Find it
but
to
at
be
the same
hilarious.
time, when we were thinking about, I thought of Oats. And then David was like, no, we can't name her Oats. She's one dog. It's got to be Oat. Just Oat. And then we thought of goat. And then, yeah. So anyway, so he was like, no, if it can't be oats, it can't be goats. It's one goat. And they're both farm animals. So there we go.
Really cute.
Yeah.
Really cute. And she's all scruffy and she's got a little goat beard of her own.
She's such a scruffer. I love her so much.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your new roommate.
Thank you.
It's
all
really
right.
Exciting.
Is it time for Firelight?
I think it's time for Firelight. I have been
We've waited long enough
to go. I've read this thing multiple times at this point.
Yeah, well,
I am.
Okay. Here's the problem: is the cover I have for this thing blows hard. Like, I'm sorry, cover art designer. I don't know who it was, but this cover is not. It did not make me want to read the book. You have
the lady in a corset standing in background of fire.
She's in a blaze. She's on a cobblestone street. She's barefoot for some reason, dressed fully intact. I'm like, okay, if your shoes have burned off, like, why is everything else good dress-wise? Then in the background is Big Ben. Why? I don't know.
Because they're in London?
Yeah. And then it's got this, like, sticker on it that says, yeah, but I mean, like, it's just superimposed. Anyway.
I see.
It's not. It doesn't look natural that Big Ben's back there. Look. Can you see it on the thing?
Yeah, I actually didn't even notice it.
It doesn't look right there. And then it's got the sticker on it that says, great new author, great low price, which never bodes well. So I was just a little bit apprehensive.
You judged a book by its cover.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have got a cover that I really like. So
yeah? What was yours like?
So I have got a cover where she is... I've got both covers. Wait. The cover when I open the book is the one you have. The cover in the preview, like the Kindle, you can see all the books that you've ordered page.
Oh, you are very right.
That's a different cover. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm not very into that cover either.
Fair.
Why is the city upside down?
I don't know.
Is
I
she
really
in an
like
underworld?
that regal neck.
Yeah, that model looks gorgeous. But
That is quite the kissable neck, Erin.
yeah. But like, why is she underneath the
Plus,
city like
her
that?
hair is all floofy as if it's being carried by the flames, Erin. Oh,
Fair.
You know?
Fair.
Anyway, I didn't mind that cover, but the one on the inside is the same one you have.
But even though I didn't like the cover, I'm very glad we read this book.
Yeah.
This is why the podcast is great, because if it were just up to me, I would have kept Winstoning until the end of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to take a break to Firelight. And here's the thing. This book is maybe the first book we've read, besides maybe Winston's, maybe See Jane Score, that I feel like is very in my wheelhouse. Like, this is my kind of book. This is squarely within one of my favorite time periods, Sherlock Holmes Times.
That's right. Where they've got the running water, but it's still England times.
It's England times.
The silhouettes are gorgeous.
It gets to be... Sherlock Holmes Times is like England times, but without most of the social constructs and a lot more steam, mystery. Ooh. There's masquerades. Yeah. You're going to find a lot of like urchins in Sherlock Holmes Times. Mm-hmm. That's why the Duchess deal, I felt like when he went out with his cane and like beat people up at night, that part was Sherlock Holmes Times.
Interesting.
Yeah. You're going to have a lot of full moons. It's going to be, botany.
Ooh.
Squarely always in Sherlock Holmes Times. Anytime anyone's making a tincture or a concoction that like could, like Jekyll and Hyde up somebody.
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes Times.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, I feel like it's the best times for anything nefarious to occur.
Yeah.
Nefarious, but with like a steampunk twist.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm into it. Super into it. So I super love this book, partially because it's one of the only times in recent memory that I've been so interested in the mystery aspect of it that I was really excited for the romance. And there were moments where I was like, hey, instead of hearing about all those awesome walks they're going on and like how he's distracting her and how he's doing all the things, like they had such good banter in the scenes that we saw them in that I was like, I would have taken 75 more pages just of that.
They were so funny with each other, which is so unexpected in a book like this. They were really cute and laughy, which this book, the plot of it is so dark. And probably from this podcast, you're only going to get that part because we're not going to read aloud. I mean, we will, but like all of the banter that came in between. But they were so like, I don't know, chiding and jokey and funny with each other. It was really nice.
And they were just adorable. Like you could see, I think she did a really great job in particular with that first dinner that they had together.
Yes.
Where like the personal part of their relationship started to come through. Like it was just gorgeous. Anyway.
Yeah.
So in this book.
All right.
We have got Archer, Benjamin Archer, the 5th Baron of Umberslade. I think. and
sorry, it's just so weird to hear out loud. Umberslade.
I know. Right. I'm probably saying that wrong, but I don't give a single fuck. And then we have
Miranda Ellis.
Miranda Ellis is she's just an excellent heroine. Can I just say that out loud?
Yeah, she's great. And, part of it is, like, part of the plot of this thing is he's, like, a creature. So he's going to end up being, like, a lot older than her in a creepy way that sometimes turns out to be kind of a creepy age difference of, like, 100 years. Yeah. But in this one, she was so...
self-possessed.
Yes. She so knew herself. She was so confident and she was so, like, smart and able to, like... I didn't feel icky about their age difference at all.
Not at all. Well, first, like, she was forced to grow up so much more quickly because her father, like, just put her out on the streets. But then, more than anything, I think The author did a really good job of just showing us her gaming things out in her inner monologue in a way that really gave her her own voice and perspective and agency, really.
Mm-hmm.
In a time where women had more agency, but certainly not all of it.
Right.
Okay, so we start in the prologue. Ooh, the prologue.
We got Archer. He's skulking around. He's got a hat on. He's got a cape on. We're Sherlock Holmesing. We've got steam coming up. It's very mysterious. We got a moon.
He's got murder in his heart.
He's thinking about some murders.
Yeah.
He's lurking around about to go murder a dude named Ellis. And he sees these two little kids fencing in a courtyard, or like preteens, maybe. Yeah.
Teenagers.
Teenagers.
One is obviously a teenager.
He thinks he thinks the other one is maybe younger. Because he's like kind of smaller and that kind of thing.
Their names fencing.
Yeah, fencing. Their names are Martin and Pan. And he's like, ooh, no one fences anymore. It's really nice to see kids fencing nowadays because I used to do that in my youth. So he pauses. He watches them fence around.
And he starts smiling for the first time in years just because of the unbridled nonsense. And he's like, the older one's good, but the younger one's going to be better once he like comes into his own.
Right. So the younger one, Pan, is like, all right, bye, and like walks away. And he's like, oh no, this little kid's gonna like walk home alone. I better follow this little kid to make sure nothing bad happens because we're in Sherlock Holmes times and there's murderous.
Anything can come out of that gutter, you know?
Yeah. And so he's following this kid home, and then like these two thuggy urchins come upon him, and they're like,
and they start speaking a lot of Cockney that I had to
Google.
Hello,
I'm an urchin. That was for the English fans.
I think that's the most animated I've ever seen you, Erin. I wish you could see the way her mouth just contorted.
Well,
it was incredible.
You know, my spirit animal, Gillian Anderson, has a British accent, so I
didn't know you were such a character actor, Erin. You've really been holding out on me.
I did accents. You've heard me do accents. I'm actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
I'm gonna turn you to cheese on toast.
I'm okay at accents. I was just joking though.
No, you're amazing. I wasn't making fun of you. I'm being earnest. It was just such a delightful surprise.
All right. Anyway.
Oh boy. Okay, so they're like, "Hey, where are you going to, you doff?" And she's like, none your business, you. And they start like a little scuffle. His bowler hat comes off, and this beautiful, bright, shining red hair comes billowing out. And all of a sudden, Archer thinks to himself, it's not a little boy. It's like a 18-year-old girl. Like, wow, she's gorgeous. She's all the things. What the fuck is she doing out here? And why is she not scared? Because then immediately the two urchins are like, oh, you're not a doff, you're a doffer. And Doffette. And like, instead of just mugging you, now we're gonna rape ya. And it's all really wholesome and nice. So then she's basically like, you better go, otherwise I'm gonna turn you to cheese on toast. Yeah. And
what a great threat.
I'm
going to turn you to cheese on toast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But then Archer intervenes, and he's like, you better get the fuck out of here. And they do, because he is a scary, scary person.
Yeah. And she's all like, he's like back in the shadows because he's trying to hide some kind of disfigurement that he has on his face. And she's like, hey, what are you doing in the alleyway behind my dad's house? Like, you probably here to kill him, probably. Like, right. He's like, yeah, you got me. Yeah. I'm here to kill your dad.
Yeah,
because he figures out who she is. And she's the daughter of the guy that he's about to kill.
Yeah, and he's about to kill him because we find out in bits and pieces. But Ellis, her father, was ruined financially, and so he sort of turned to piracy, or he partnered with people who wanted him to turn to piracy, and he knocked over one of Archer's ships, which held a really, really important thing. He thought it was going to be like the cure of his disfigurement.
That's what happened?
Yeah, so this is why he's going...
Okay.
Oh
All right.
my Christ, on a bicicleta.
Okay. Hey, listener, it's Erin here. These are the kind of books that are in my wheelhouse. I am an avid reader of paranormal romances and Sherlock Holmes Times romances and, werewolves, as we've said.
Werewolves.
But I am the worst kind of paranormal romance and Sherlock Holmes Times mystery romance readers, because if there's not any like backstory of like, this is how the piracy and the Egyptians and the Druids and like all of this happened, if there's not any of that,
if it's
I'm
not
pissed.
like explicit,
if they don't do enough backstory on like how things came to be the way that they are, I'm pissed. I'm like, well, that was really thin. But when there is enough backstory, I'm like, I just skip right over it. So I'm just like, blah, 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 Egyptians, blah, 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 Egyptian soldier and druids and blah, 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 pirates and box with a ring in it. Because I don't care. I just need it to be there. And that makes me the worst. I'm sorry,
Wow.
Kristen Callihan. I got that there was a boat. I understood that
shit.
he was mad at him and a boat sank, but I wasn't sure. I did not realize he was the pirate. Cool.
Yeah, so he's the one who set it all up, and he thinks that his cure is at the bottom of the ocean somewhere. So he's going to kill Ellis. Miranda then is like, if you're going to kill my father, you're going to go through me, because you can't get blood from a stone and you're not getting blood from this stone. It's actually one of my favorite lines.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh, like he starts immediately getting a little crush on her, because he's like, first of all, this woman doesn't seem to be afraid of anything, and I don't understand why. But then she's like, okay, I need to check you for weapons before I just send you on your merry way, because I'm not prepared to just let you go and give you the opportunity to still go kill my father. Like, he's the worst, but he's mine,
Right.
So she puts him up against the wall, and he sort of goes for it because he knows he's in control the whole time.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah. He's like, oh, this cutie. And she starts
frisking him.
Getting all frisky.
So she goes down one leg and up the other leg, and then she feels his muscly thigh. I'm sorry, that's Rooster barking her face off. We're doing this during the day in Alaska, which means Rooster will bark. Is that okay? We've already lost our English listener today. I was like, hello, and she was like, goodbye.
So it's all very businesslike. Her movements are all very businesslike until she gets up to his gluteus maximus parts. And then his inner monologue is, oh man, she's copping a real quick feel. And it's one of the first times in probably, I'm going to say 50 years, that somebody has touched him in that way and like made him feel like a man instead of a monster. And so it's not something he's going to forget very soon. And he then in there is like, okay, I'm going to marry this girl. I'm going to offer for her. But first I got to go see if I can cure myself so that we can have an actual marriage.
Yeah.
So he fucks off. And I mean, this seemed really odd because like the one job of ladies in any England time is to get married. And I know that Ellis is ruined. I just feel like it was a big gamble on his part, Cocky bastard is what I'm saying, I guess.
Oh, that she wouldn't get married?
Yeah.
In the meantime?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
I mean,
well, but the thing is, like, he knew that he had such a horrible thing going on with him.
Yeah.
That it didn't... The thing is, if she got married in those 3 years, it's, like, fine. Because he couldn't have, like, jumped on the opportunity then anyway. Because, like... I mean, I realize he eventually does, but in that moment, he's like, he had to take that gamble, I think.
It's completely true. Absolutely. So at the end, he's like, what?
Erin's a sexy monster, my favorite kind.
She's doing a little sexy monster dance.
I think this is our first sexy monster. I'm so excited.
And he's a real sexy monster. And like his brain is sexy.
Oh, yeah.
And his body is sexy. And his attitude is sexy. His behavior in alleys is sexy. We'll get there. So then he's like, I don't remember exactly why, but he's like, I want to like give you a gift kind of thing, or like something to remember me by, or something. And so he gives her this gold coin. And he's like, it's not legal tender, but you can melt it down if you want and, you know, get a pretty penny for it. She goes, I'm not going to take charity, but I'll take a trade. And she promptly throws a knife into the wall beside him. And she's like, here, you can have this knife. Ooh!
And she looks at the coin, and the coin says the West Moon Club. And she's like, what's that? And then epilogue over.
And then he Darkwing Ducks the fuck out of there.
Darkwing Duck! All right.
So we open up the actual book, and she is capering. She is going to steal a necklace.
It's 3 years later. She's in a jewelry store. She's using her feminine wiles and boobs to distract a jeweler to steal a necklace. And so she is distracting him, and a bunch of ladies walk in, and they're like swooning in the bad way over Archer, the Baron of the thing.
The
Archer.
Dread Duke of Awful. I don't know.
Yeah, because he's such a fright to see, because he walks around with like a silk cap over his head and also a carnival mask, and which is like, honestly, that is really frightening. Like, if there was somebody
carnival mask,
if there was somebody just like roaming Anchorage wearing like a hood and a carnival mask, I would swoon. I would be terrified by that.
Absolutely. Hold on, have I told you about Captain Bayonne?
What? No. What? No.
Yeah, we have this guy called I think he's Captain Bayonne.
Tread lightly. He may be a listener.
I know. He literally runs around town.
What does that mean?
Nobody knows. And then I know, it's the weirdest thing.
Like, what is he wearing?
Okay. Sure, we'll go there. He's usually wearing some sort of athletic bodysuit and then some kind of full-on cap mask. Cap. Like, cap. It's on his head. It's like a skull mask with like, it's a costume. He wears this full-on like Spider-Man-esque costume. Most of the time I see him stretching on corners, or a lot of times right near my house, he'll stand about 20 feet away from a garbage can and attempt to flip a water bottle into the garbage can with his feet, like like hacky sack style, like a hacky sack serve. But more than anything, he goes down Broadway racing cars on foot. like he's a runner of some sort.
Wow.
He supposedly does a lot of things for charity, but yeah, we have this local oddity called Captain Bayonne, who runs around being an everyday superhero, raising money for charity.
Do you think this is the cat burglar you've always dreamed of?
I'm sorry. He is far too conspicuous to be any kind of respectable cat burglar.
Well, I'm just saying, if friends of the podcast will know that Melody is down for a cat burglar. So I just wanted to put it out there, since he's stretching and, flipping bottles into things. That seems like a thing a cat burglar would be good at doing.
No, those are both too conspicuous. The best thing about cat burglars is that you can also take them to a cocktail party and nobody will know.
Yeah, if you demasked him, no one would know.
Sure, but then he's not heisting jewels from the rich to give to the poor. He's just racing cars on foot. You just said he does a lot for charity.
All right, okay.
And stretching on corners and missing garbage cans with water bottles over and over and over again. That is my impression of Captain Bayonne.
All right. Okay, so there are these women, and they're like, Archer.
They're
scary.
Like swooning and
super
he's
scary.
So scary. And meanwhile, this is only because his coach drove by. They didn't actually see his person.
They just saw his black, scary coach. And she's like, oh, brother. But then she uses that diversion to steal all her jewels. Mm-hmm. And then she goes home to her father, and she's like, here's your stupid jewels.
No, she watches his coach pull away from her house.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that. Yeah, so his coach is at her house when she gets there. Then she goes in and she's like, Dad, here's your stupid jewels that you made me steal for you because you're ruined and you have no money. And her dad's like, guess what you get to do tomorrow? marry Lord Archer, the one whose face is so disfigured that he has to wear a carnival mask all around London. And she's like, no, that sucks. And he's like, yeah, you're going to do it because he's going to pay me a lot of money. And she's like, no. And then they get in a fight over this warehouse fire that destroyed his fortune.
There's a lot of him being like, I'm going to hit you because I'm your father. And her being like, do it, try it, because I will burn you to a crisp. And this is where we learn that she can create fire with thought.
Mm-hmm.
So when she was 10, she went into one of her father's warehouses because he used to be a really well-to-do merchant.
Mm-hmm.
And she went into one of his warehouses just because it was like her playland, and was trying to show a friend this cool thing she could do, and promptly burned the whole thing down because the fire got out of control. And that was like the first thing that happened that like set her father to ruin. So since then, she's been attempting to make up for it, and she's got this really sad and, semi-perverse sense of loyalty to him because he's a terrible person who treats her awfully.
Mm-hmm.
But, kids are miraculous little creatures.
Yeah.
So he says, you have to make the decision. I can't force you. Part of the agreement is that you have to say, yes, I will marry him. Otherwise, he won't take you. He won't have you. So make your decision, but either way, you don't live here anymore. You either go live in this rich baron's Scrooge McDuck mansion.
House of horrors, yeah.
Or you find your own way on the streets.
Right.
And she says, okay, well, no. And I love this too, because she actually does make the decision. It's not her saying, I don't want to live on the streets, so I'm going to marry him. You actually watch her think about the fact that she doesn't want him to be one more person that her father screws over, and thereby making her just as fucked up as her father is.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, no, you know what? I am going to do the honorable thing. You have told him that I will marry him. So yes, I will be the bigger person and I will marry him because I am a good person.
Right.
And so he dresses her up like a taffeta cupcake and they go to the family kirk.
Can I say right now that Kristen Callihan is a master of show don't tell.
Yes! Oh my God.
Because I feel master. Like a lot of other people writing this book would have started out in her internal monologue being like, ever since I was a little girl, I controlled all the fires and blah, 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 blah. But instead, she's just in this argument with her dad and she's like, I'll burn you alive, asshole. And you're like, what? Mm-hmm. She'll burn him alive? That came out of nowhere. And that's how everything in this book is kind of revealed. It's like through dialogue or through like an errant thought where you're just like, what? That was a weird thought to have. And then later, it's like you kind of get to come to the realization on your own.
It's beautiful.
Of what's going on.
I mean, yeah, you get to basically be like a Sherlock Holmes detective who knows how to read minds. It's amazing. It's an amazing reading experience.
Yeah, it's very troublesome when you're like, what was that about? Like hieroglyphics, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And then later you can't figure it out. Don't do that. Don't be me. Don't skim the good
stop
stuff.
Skipping.
Yeah, I don't mean to. It's just what my brain does. It's just like, oh, look, a paragraph with no dialogue. I can't do it. Like, I don't know what it is.
Oh, interesting.
It's terrible. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So they show up at the church and the priest is like, hey, this is really weird, but he wants to talk to you before the ceremony.
I love that. This is really weird, but his fiance wants to meet you before the ceremony?
I know. So she goes back and he's in the full carnival mask and, his whole getup. She can tell he has a really, really hot bod underneath his Sherlock Holmes attire.
She's like, he's very tall and broad and very muscles. Very muscles.
Very muscles. Much muscles. Very very hot. So he's like, I just thought that you should be able to see me before this and like actually make a decision. And they actually have this like really hilarious bumbling assholic on both sides conversation where she's like, all right, well, if you're going to treat me like this, like I'm going to go. Because he basically says, like, yeah, I wear a mask, but your beauty is just as big of a mask.
Well, right. I think she tells him, he's like, well, I wanted you to see what I was getting into. And she's like, if you really want me to see what I'm getting into, like, let's see it, right? Like, doesn't she be like, all right, take off the mask then? And he's like, well, I'm not taking off the mask. And she's like,
meanwhile, I had the same thought. I was
me too.
You're not showing her what she's getting into at all. Like, literally.
But now that I know what his thing is, I'm on his side too. Like,
totally.
I understood this argument. And so he turns it on her by being like, is your beauty not just as much of a mask as my mask is a mask? And she's like, no, you're a bastard. Like, I can't, I'm showing you my thing, you know? And so they get in a big fight. But then she decides that she knows she's got this secret fire control situation where she can incinerate anybody. And she knows that, and she can defend herself. And also she kind of likes him. Like, she kind of feels a pull toward him. Like, she knows he's got his sexy muscles. And
she's starting to feel like he has a little bit of vulnerability under that. Like with a couple of the things he says, she's like, oh, I'm starting to identify with him. So they get married, and it's excellent. So they pull up to this giant house. It's like raining and pouring, and it's a storm, and it's really scary looking. And she's like, I could still run. You know what I mean? But in her head, she's also thinking like, no, he'll just pull me back. He'll just carry me back into his mansion of doom. Yeah. And then it opens up, and it's this gorgeous, bright, crazily decorated, beautiful house. And he's like, so you thought it was going to be a horror show, huh? And she's like, yeah, I did. Glad it's not.
I mean, you have a choice of like what to wear over your face, and you choose a carnival mask. So I assumed you were super fucking weird. Yeah, like that's a fair assumption.
Yeah, and he's like, my house is my refuge. Why shouldn't it be beautiful and comfortable? You know, it's lovely. So then he takes her to her room, and she has a lunch prepared or whatever. He goes off to he has a greenhouse on the roof, which can't even talk about how much I want a greenhouse on my roof, you know?
He hangs out in his greenhouse. He takes off his mask and he sits. We have a whole chapter of just him brooding in his greenhouse and thinking very cryptic thoughts about things. He's like, the answer is in Alexandria and blah blah blah, and you're just like, what is going on? I don't understand.
Dead woman named Elizabeth, like a bunch of stuff,
and you're just like, what is happening? How is this a whole chapter? It's beautifully written.
I didn't think that at all.
I know, but I was just like, blah, blah, blah. Is anyone gonna smooch in this chapter? No. Like, what is happening? And I
loved it because I think that a lot of this for me was like the tension of, is he talking to a family member? Is he talking to an old lover? Is he talking to, like, you have to game it out in your brain because you don't find out until 4 chapters later. And it's goddamn gorgeous. It's a wonderful reading experience.
It was so good. And fortunately, a lot of that is gamed out in dialogue, which I always read no matter what. So
it's so true.
Yeah, it's a great mystery. Like, it's so cryptic, all of his thoughts. And the thing is, he does not reveal to you what his deformity is until the end. And I feel like a lot of these books,
he reveals it to her.
Right.
It's
and a lot of these books, when you do the perspective of the person who has the mystery, you learn it as the reader.
Yes. And then you spend the whole time being like, you dumb bitch. Like, why aren't you putting 2 and 4 and 8 together? Whereas in this one, you find out with her, and it is so cool. It's like, it's such a neat experience.
But I feel like this author was really good at concealing that from us, but not making it obvious that she was.
Yes.
Like, I wasn't reading it being like, just tell us. And it didn't feel like that. Anyway, all right. So he's done brooding in his greenhouse.
And then they go to dinner.
No. No, we go to the murder next.
The murder most foul.
So we're with Sir Percival in his house, and he's hanging out with his wife.
He's drinking port and taking a nap.
Somebody sneaks into his house, and he looks up and he goes, Archer? And then the killer says, I have to send a message. And then he dies.
I need you to send a message. And then they slit his throat. And the valet in the next room hears all the gurgling, awful sounds. And then a maid sees a black masked figure running across a courtyard. Well, you don't know any of that yet, but...
You don't know, yeah.
All of that
happens. So all that happened. So then they are at dinner that evening. He gets her a bunch of food that she hasn't had in a long time because her dad's poor and she has to steal for food. So she's got like all the chickens and the soups and the fruits and the desserts and the wine.
And he's not eating.
Right, because he's wearing a carnival mask.
Yeah.
I can't. It's too much.
But also not making it weird. Like,
he doesn't make it weird, but like,
eat, but it's hot.
It's also inherently weird. Like, can you imagine eating dinner with just a guy wearing like a hard mask just staring at you?
Yeah.
Like, it's inherently weird.
He is making adorable, charming banter and telling her all about his backstory. So he says that he spent about 10 years in America being an oil baron of some sort, a la Rockefeller. And in Sherlock Holmes Times, worth $70 million.
Right.
I can't even wrap my brain around that.
Uh-huh.
I mean, yikes.
Yeah.
And so she says, like, I feel like you got the short end of the stick on this deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he guffaws because, of course not. She's married to a monster.
And then they have very flirty and laughy dialogue, and they go back and forth and kind of spar. She calls him Archer. And when they are kind of like sparring seductively, she like grabs a pear and eats a pear seductively, and he like grabs her wrist and is like, don't tempt me.
You best be careful.
Yeah. And then he says, if I wasn't wearing this mask, I'd suck the juice off your fingers. And she's like, what?
And I don't know how she didn't burst into flames.
Right. She's a flame monster. Come on.
I burst into flames.
Yeah,
just reading it.
Liked it. But then I also thought to myself, like, can you imagine, okay, you're having dinner with Mr. Carnival Mask.
With a man you just met 12 hours ago. Not even that.
And you're married. And you're having some flirty banter. Can you imagine a situation where you reach for a fruit and try to eat it seductively and that is successful? Because I can't. I can't imagine a situation where I'm like, I'm going to flirt with this guy right now. I'm going to take this pear home. Like, I can't ever imagine that working out for me in a million years.
No,
so I'm glad it worked out for Miranda.
But we don't have the lithe fencer's body of Miranda Fair.
The plump lips. Suck the plump juice from the pear. Yeah. Anyway, so then that ends. He escorts her upstairs, right?
Yeah, and they do this thing at the door where everybody wants to kiss each other and nobody knows what to do with themselves. And then
right, because he's wearing a mask. Like, what is she supposed to do?
Right.
Smooch the mask?
Well, no, but she's still like, hard body, love this, wanna touch, shouldn't touch because I am lady. You know what I mean? Like, she's sort of short-circuiting on her own. And then he puts her to bed. He's just like, good night, see you never, thanks, bye. And he like runs off to take a cold shower. But before he can do that, he gets a package with a human eyeball in it. Human eyeball. And I think there's like a note.
Yeah, there's a note that's like cut out magazines or cut out newspapers, and it says, you should not have done it. And then there's also soaked in the blood from, the human eyeball that's also in the package.
Yeah, the blood and the viscous. Blech.
Yeah.
The viscera, whatever that's called.
It's a newspaper clipping from his marriage announcement. So somebody's real mad that he got married, says you should not have done it. So then that evening,
she goes off, like in the middle of the night-ish. She goes to get a drink because she doesn't really know what to do with herself. And she ends up in Archer's library. And that is when her brother-in-law, a CID inspector, shows up. And this is still a thing I still don't understand. This is the one thing about peerage that I don't get.
What's a peerage? What is this? What?
Oh, Baron, Marcus, Duke, like being a peer of the realm. The thing that you hate. The thing that you refuse to understand anything about at all.
The thing that it's like they can't be arrested is what you're saying? From like what we learned in the Duchess War?
Yeah, you can't like even ask them, even if there's a really good possibility they literally murdered another human.
Yeah.
You can't just ask them about it or like make any indication that they could be a suspect. Right. And they also can't be arrested. It just seems like such a setup for horrible abuses and like murder clubs and stuff. You know what I mean? Like rape and murder clubs. It just seems like you get a bunch of already privileged white men, add that they're untouchable, and then just like, how are they not just raping and murdering their way all over everyone?
And
anyway,
those are the great great grandfathers of all of our current rape and murder clubs.
Indeed. So he shows up.
We lost a listener? Do you think somebody was just like, that was pretty political? Do you think that happened just now?
Don't care.
Okay. All right.
So we got to be true to ourselves, Erin.
You're right.
ducks behind a screen because she panics. And she's like, I shouldn't be in here getting a man drink.
Right. A bourbon. She feels like he knows that she's there because he sees her like half empty glass in there. And he knows that's not one of the staff and he knows it's not him. So like clearly she's behind a sofa or something, but he can't really do much about it. So there you go.
So she hears all about the murder. She hears all about the that they said his name, that they saw a masked figure that looks exactly like him running away. She hears all of this. She also sees a coin that the murderer left in the empty eye socket of Sir Percival that ends up being the West Moon Club coin. And then she figures out that he was the man in the alleyway.
And she's like, that man in the alleyway that I thought about sexually for so long is this man who I
touched myself to?
Yeah. And she's like, oh dear. Okay. But then she's also like, is he a murderer? Because that sounds very incriminating.
Yeah, should I run now? Probs. Yeah. I'm not gonna though because I'm dumb. And she actually says that. She's like, I'm an idiot. This is nuts.
Yeah.
But here I am. I just know he's not, like, in her bones. She knows that he's innocent. They're also inextricably linked, you guys.
He doesn't have an alibi because this happened during the time where he was brooding in the greenhouse earlier. So.
And he refuses to even attempt an alibi. He's just like, no.
Yeah, he's not going to lie because he's got integrity.
He does. Nice. He has so much, too much sometimes.
Next thing that happens is Archer goes and sees an old dude named Leland. He sneaks into his house. You think, as the reader, you're like, oh, he's about to do another murder.
Murders.
Me, as the reader, I was like, oh, he's a murderer, but he's doing it for reasons. I was pretty sure of that at the time. Yeah, I was like, sexy murder monster. I like a murder.
I do too.
So I contain multitudes, everyone. You hack into the NSA, I'm done with you. You murder a few people for reasons, I'm all about reasons? It. Do you got reasons? All right. But really, he just kind of like sneaks into this guy's window, wakes up this old dude. They chat a little bit about his deformity, how to fix it, how it's a terrible idea that he's married. But it's all very cryptic because, again, she's a master of show, don't tell.
Just a master.
So they're like, ooh, you should not have married her. It's a bad idea. You're sucking her into all this danger and it's terrible. And then they talk about who might be mad that he's back now in England. Leland says that Rossberry is the one that's probably the most mad about it. And then at the end of the conversation, he's like, hey, we need to be invited to some parties so that Miranda can be introduced into society.
Yeah, he's not going to have her be a recluse and be punished just because he's an oddity. Yeah. So they go to a party and the whole time Miranda's like, ugh, dumb. Why are we doing this? We're just giving them an opportunity to shun you even more. Why are we doing this? And he's like, because, my dear, I want to show off my beautiful bride or whatever.
But everybody's staring at him because he's crazy looking. And they see a group of old men who are definitely like, I'm looking at him. And she's like, do you know those men? Should we avoid them? And he's like, what? And then I look like I'm scared of them? No, we're going to go right up to these guys who don't like me. So it's a bunch of old men. They make some like cryptic remarks and jokes back and forth. Eventually they explain to Miranda that they're part of a botany group together, which sounds pretty fishy.
It sounds like a rape and murder club.
Yeah, it's definitely a murder club. They're making roses. Rossberry, the one that is upset that he's back, according to Leland, he shows up, introduces everybody to his son, McKinnon. They show up and talk to them. Rossberry's a total asshole. It's pretty clear at this point to me that Rossberry and his son are werewolves.
With the canines and the nonsense. They talk about how he smiles and his sharp canines are in
a
full
lot of
view.
canines going on. Somebody says that, I think it's actually Archer, says something to the effect of like, somebody needs to shut you up. Maybe a muzzle would be appropriate. Ha ha ha.
Oh, and P.S. I am definitely reading book 2, Moonlight, which is about McKinnon. Sexy Sherlock Holmes Times werewolf, Erin.
Oh, yeah. I got a big old crush on McKinnon, which you shouldn't have, because is not, it's not a good look.
He's a dastardly dude.
He's terrible. In this book. But I got a big old crush on him. They're Scottish, which helps.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and then they mentioned Marvell, right?
Yeah. So they also say something about what Archer did to Marvel or Marvell. Like, that's something that's like a thing that is mentioned, notably. Yes. Okay.
So then Miranda is the belle of the ball. Everybody wants to dance with her pretty face.
Archer doesn't dance, so she's stuck dancing with everyone there.
Yeah, she only wants to dance with him. But and then she finally has to go because somebody steps on her foot, and she's like, "You fucking dandy," and gets out of there.
Her feet hurt.
She goes to look up Archer, and she sees him go into a room with Leland and everybody else. Leland like gives her a look that's like, "Out here, woman, you stay."
Yeah,
and then
only secret botanist old men in here, lady.
And then she gets approached by this woman who's wearing a ton of makeup.
Lots of makeup. Introduces herself as Victoria. Very beautiful. So she's like, she's super pretty. Why is she wearing so much makeup? Does she have a skin condition? What's her deal? I'm full on definitely a vampire. I'm like, yep, vampire. Got it. I've seen how much makeup they wear on True Blood. I am 100% in for Victoria as a vampire. Spoiler alert, I'm super wrong. Like, I'm very wrong. Yeah.
That's one of the things I loved about this book, because while it was paranormal, it wasn't any of the obvious versions of paranormal.
Except for werewolves.
Except for the werewolf, yeah.
But that never, like...
But that's a non-plot.
That's a non-plot.
It's like a couple of things.
They're just dropping hints for book 2. Yeah. So... She says her name is Victoria. She says she's a cousin of Archer's. She says she has his name, Victoria Archer. Calls him Benjamin. She just kind of chats her up a little bit and is like, "Oh, you're my cousin-in-law," or whatever.
The boys adjourn, and then one of the guys, Chetham, whatever his name is, one of the guys from the society group comes out and asks her to dance. He's like, he sort of looks pale and worried, but he asks Victoria to dance, and they go off. So then Archer comes up to her side, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on?" She was like, "Oh, I met your cousin Victoria." He was like, "Rah, not cousin,
he's real mad.
Bad lady, don't engage."
Never speak to her again. And she's very like, "Well, that's a hell of a order to never speak to her again." He's like, "We're not family. She's not a good person. She's very dangerous. Do not speak to her. Like, she's lying to you. That's not her name. Don't get in there."
I think my favorite part of that is that she was like, "Well, that was a very pretty way to dress up an order."
Yeah.
Like a command. Because he was like, "I would very much appreciate it if you never spoke to her again."
Yes. So then she loses him again, and she goes to track him down. So she's going up and down the halls of this guy's mansion.
And she decides to go into his private rooms.
And she hears Archer talking to somebody. So she's kind of like approaching, but she doesn't really want to eavesdrop. But then she hears the voice of a female call him beloved. She hears her call him her beloved. And she's like, she literally is like, "Fuck politeness.
Right.
I'm gonna stand here.
This is officially my fucking business.
I don't care much about privacy in this moment. I'm going to stand right fucking here." So it's Victoria, and he says something like, "Why are you going around presenting yourself to be named Victoria?" And she's like, "Oh, I thought you liked that name. I thought you liked moaning it." Oh no, I know what it was. She calls him Benjamin.
She calls him like, Benji.
Yeah.
And he says, "Don't call me that."
She
goes,
she's like,
"You used to love it when I said that. In fact, you loved it when I moaned it." And
he's real pissed.
And she's like walking around. He's standing stock still, totally tense, not having a great time. She's stalking around him, touching him and really needling him in this like seductress sort of way.
Right.
And she starts saying that like, "Oh, are you afraid that your pretty little wife is going to be terrified if you bed her and she sees you for the first time?" And like she says all these awful things.
Sees what a monster you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Horrible.
And so Miranda runs off because he realizes that she's there.
Right.
And Victoria is like, "Yeah, that was all for Miranda's benefit because I just feel like stirring the pot."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's totally gross. He then fucks off and goes to find Miranda to try to smooth things over.
Right.
Finds her out in the courtyard, and they see the body of Lord Cheltenham. Cheltenham.
Another old dude botanist. That's all you have to know. Yeah. And he has his tongue cut out, and there's a coin in his eye. So first there was an eyeball, Now, there is a tongue.
Well, and just FYI,
Yeah.
he crushes her to him, and they do a long hug that I found comforting and erotic.
I have no memory of this hug, but I'm really glad it worked for you.
Well, because he's like, don't look, like, just be here in my strong bosom. And she's like, that's exactly where I want to be. In her brain. Oh, not even in her brain, in my brain. That's how it happened.
Okay, to be fair, the end of this chapter and the beginning, or the next, like, 2 chapters were in that 2 to 3 hour period on Sunday where we believed we were recording Sunday afternoon. And I was like, oh shit. We've got 20 chapters to go. So I was like, blah, 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 da, 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 hug.
Oh, no.
Da, da, da. So, and then we slowed it down, and then I got an extra day. So then I slowed down my reading a little bit.
Yikes.
Because I didn't have 4 weeks to read this book. So I did it on the day before we recorded.
Dumbass. All right. Mm-hmm. So, especially since this is such a good book. Meanwhile, I've read it twice, and I enjoyed it thoroughly both times.
I would have read it twice if I had the, brains.
Okay, so the next scene I loved because Miranda goes to her sister Poppy's bookstore.
The next scene I found completely pointless because Miranda goes to her sister's bookstore. I was just like, what? Why are we talking about this? Like, what would we could have completely skipped chapter 11 and all the same things would have happened.
No, because sisterhood, Erin, honestly.
Okay. I'll just let you take this chapter then.
You know what? It's just something that I think that people should read because the sisters do this really awesome needling. The sisters have very distinct and almost opposed personalities that come out in really awesome ways.
And the sisters are the heroines in the next 2 books. So I think that this was a setup.
Is Poppy?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of them is.
Oh, yeah, Daisy is.
Daisy is.
in Moonlight. Yeah.
Yeah,
Daisy
and then the next one is
married
Poppy.
to this. Poppy's already married. I wonder how that works.
It works because it's a married romance. Yeah.
Married romance.
I love that you of all people were like, how does that even work? That's your favorite thing.
I can't. Okay, well, now I'm reading the whole series. Good to know.
I just looked at you dumbstruck. It's a married romance.
It doesn't happen often, Erin. Okay.
True.
So basically, they do a bunch of, they try to find out what the West Moon Club is. It is not on any record to date. Nobody has a fucking clue. And you get a lovely little look into their sister lives. Mm-hmm. And that's all. Right. So then Miranda follows Archer the next time, right?
Yeah. So she's following
decided
him.
She's going to be Miranda Ellis Archer, super spy.
She's wearing a little mustache. No, she's not.
Yeah, she is.
In this scene. So she gets a coach. She's following him, and then she loses him in traffic. And she's like, oh, shit, I lost him. And then what's the coach person?
Coachman. John Coachman.
Footman? Okay.
John Coachman.
Yeah, that's... Okay, yeah, John Coachman.
You better give him a name. He is a victim. R.I.P. John Coachman. You better remember his name. Otherwise, you're just glorifying the killer, Erin. Honestly.
I didn't remember his name until he was dead. And then I was like, that must have been a person. I'm not going back. So she's like, I've lost him in traffic. And he's like, well, Archer goes to the museum every Wednesday afternoon. So he's probably going to the museum. And he's like, why didn't you ask me? And she's like, well, spying.
No, she's like, why didn't you tell me that?
Yeah,
and he was like, you didn't ask me that.
So she goes to the museum. She finds him in the Red Salon. Don't know what that is. Some kind of exhibit. He says he realizes she's there because he can feel her presence and smell her.
Although that dress is delectable, it is hardly inconspicuous. And she's like,
Melody said that line from memory just now. So he sensed her presence. They talk a little bit. He goes to the museum because it reminds him of his mother and his family. So what he does is he pays the museum people to clear out the top 2 floors so they can roam around and not have to deal with people gawking at his...
No, that's not true. They spend the whole day together and then he pays for more hours.
Oh, I thought it was like so they could have privacy. Well, okay, same kind of thing. No,
because the whole thing, it's not. Because the whole thing is she spends the whole day realizing like how much a day in public is taxing on him and how many stares he gets and how much of a production it is for the poor guy. And her heart melts even more for him. And then they pay to get some extra hours, and then they get some private time.
All right.
And there's some stairwell nonsense. That's you know what? Here's the other thing. Although this book, I think the way that I described it to you is that when I was trying to coax you into reading it not 24 hours before.
Sure.
I was like, it has, I think, the most cinematic ending I've ever read in a book.
It's got a lot of cinematic everything in it.
Yes. This is one of those moments, however, where it is not at all cinematic. It was really hot on the page, but can you imagine attempting to watch two actors just tongue each other but not kiss?
I did not. Okay,
it
first of all, we're not there yet.
Hot. Sorry.
So they talk. She flat out is like, "Are you a murderer?"
Oh yeah.
He's flat out like, "No." So they're talking about murdery stuff.
Oh,
he takes off his mask.
I know. But wait.
Okay.
So, and that's also when she's like, if you just tell me, I'm gonna believe you. And he's like, why would you do that? Trust is so easily broken. And she's like, maybe it'll be harder to break if it's given freely. Woo!
Melody knows all these lines from heart, clearly. She's just reciting them out of nowhere. So he takes off the hard mask, and then all that's left is like the silk mask. He's got kind of like a piece of half piece of silk over his face. So she can now see his whole mouth, his full lips, that he has a strong jaw, cleft chin. He's got Italian olivey skin, beautiful eyes. So then they engage in a makeout that is tongues only.
Tongues only. They just sort of like explore. And I got a little hot under the collar, but attempting to like visualize it, I was like, oh, this just looks like a high school, like a bad high school movie spoof.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where they're like, bleh, bleh.
I read
it's not like that at all.
No, I read it and I was cool with it. I was down for it. I was everything.
So hot.
And then later, like a scene later, she says something about how like that was great up there in the museum, but she would really like to kiss him on the lips instead of just tongues. And I was like, and so I rewinded it and I went back. And you know how much I hate going back. I won't go back for anything. I won't go back to figure out who the fuck John Coachman is.
Nope.
And I was like, tongues only. And I went back and I read it again and I was like, tongues only, I guess.
Tongues only, yeah. Yeah, they just like dipped in, or they would each put their tongues tentatively out and like slide against each other. And she was waiting for him. She's like holding onto her skirts desperately, trying to keep control of herself. Yeah. And he's just never ever making full contact with her lips, and it's all she wants. She just wants him to press her to him and make out with their face, but instead they do this like elongated exploring situation.
It's crazy weird. It blows my mind that this author was able to make that work. Like that, I know. It honestly blows my mind. Yeah,
the talent.
So they do their weird tongue only. He does, and you know what's crazy? Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
That the killer was watching this the whole time, and you can like. Here's what I imagined: is the killer just like the killer's face, just being like, "Huh?" Like, all right, I guess I'll do my killing thing, but like,
yeah, like, do I just interrupt
licking each other's tongues? Like, I'm less into the killing that I want to do because I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. That's what I was thinking about. So anyway, the killer.
Oh yeah, because meanwhile they're not touching each other at all. No, it's literally just their tongues touching.
Just tongues.
It's so hot though. I don't know how it was that hot.
On the Facebook group on Geriatric Friend Cult Club. Could we like start some kind of a discussion of that? Like, I want to know other people who read this book if they are as weirded out as I was, because I was also I was not weirded out. I was firmly not weirded out. I was both things at the same time.
I mean, you know what? Here's the thing. I was not weirded out, and I was astonished by the fact that I was not weirded out.
Right.
Okay, but also Geriatric Friendship Cult is so fun because, like, you saw the band? They started this whole thing and started chiming in about who they think you should bone in bands.
Hard pass.
Hey, you know what I just realized?
What?
I just remembered that Michael was a classically trained pianist until the age of like 11.
I remember that when okay, Beard Science Part 2 dropped today. So I was listening to that earlier today to make sure that I didn't sound like an idiot. Every time I listen and I confirm, yes, did sound like an idiot.
No.
But so I was listening to it and I was like, wait, Melody's with a musician. Michael is like a very serious pianist.
But he was.
Yeah.
I have never watched him play because he took second like twice when he thought he should have won and like everybody thought he should have won. And so he was just like, I'm done with this. And true to Michael's style, he walked away and never returned.
He's the cerebral of pianos.
Never touched a piano again. And I've been like, can you just play me some chopsticks? Just prove it to me, like anything. And he's like, no, I'm not doing that. I've got the trophies to prove it. You
Jesus.
Anyway. Okay, so then they're tonguing, right? And they're literally just tonguing. And then
all of a sudden soft
he
thud.
pulls. He pulls her to him and pulls her out of the way. And she's like, I don't know what's going on because I like this, but I don't know why he's doing it because it's not erotic. And then there's a soft thud and she looks over and where her back used to be is now a knife in the marble wall. And there's a cackle from down in the stairwell. And then Archer's like, stay here, I'ma go. And he jumps down the thing instead of going down the stairs.
Floors of stairs in the middle. You know how it's like stairs in the swirly gig? He goes down the center of the swirly gig of the stairs.
Yeah. And he just
this
lands
is why
like a
I
jaguar.
should write books. And then in the swirly gig, he jumps in the middle of it.
Yeah, get it, everyone. So, lands like a jaguar.
Yeah, and he takes the fuck off. But first, he's like, Miranda, stay here. Don't move. And I didn't hear that. I was too busy being like,
yeah, no fucking way ever.
Yeah.
And she promptly pulls up her skirts too high for propriety's sake and runs down the stairs after him.
Yeah.
And she need only follow the crazy onlookers to find him.
Right.
And she goes into this alleyway and he is just trading blows with this other masked tyrant.
So fast are the blows that it's like a blur. And I'm like, motherfucking vampires. It's vampires. Oh. I know a vampire when I see one, and that's what's going on
Erin.
Here. We got two vampires. One has a vampire affliction.
Yeah,
but we've got some kind of vampire disease.
Hep V thing.
Yeah. Some sort of Hep V. So
hashtag true blood.
So Archer goes down and Miranda's like, not my Archer. And so she
not
takes
when I have a parasol in my hand.
She takes her parasol and she's like waggling it up to the thing, and the person.
No, she opens it in the guy's
that's what I'm saying.
face, and he stabs into it, and then she closes it.
And then she closes it, takes the knife away.
Turns it around.
Poof.
Yeah.
And then she punches him, right?
Oh, yeah.
She punches the killer straight in the face. And the killer's like, my face. And I think runs away. I don't know what happens.
No, Archer then recovers and punches him.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So then it's fucking on.
It is so fucking on because
it's like car chase time, guys. They've just been in a car chase. Girls
the
love
car
that
chase
shit.
Went straight to her vagina.
So he's pissed at her, like they always are, because he was like, I told you to stay there. And she's like, I saved your life. And he's like, I saved your life one time too. Like, that doesn't give everybody a right to not do the thing that people ask him to do. And so he pins her up against the...
and then he says, do you want me to show you what happens to women in alleyways? And she's like, I don't not want you to show me.
So he pins her up against the brick wall. Like
her
she's
face is
facing the wall and she's crushing her boobs on it.
And it's a wet, foggy London evening, and so the freezing water is seeping into her bosom and onto her pert nipples, everybody.
And he's like smooching up on her neck, and then he takes his hands and he runs them up her legs, and then he like grabs her ass. It's so good.
Yeah, so good. And then he starts inching around front, and she's like, Archer, stop. But she doesn't mean it, and he knows that.
And he like finger bangs her like just a little.
And
like
then
just a little bit.
Little bit, but then he's like, faster, and she's like, yes, and he's like, harder, and she's like, and then she comes like a freight train. And again, I don't know how she didn't spontaneously burst into flames.
I just wanted to say a detail right here that I just think everyone listening should know if they have not read this book or aren't planning on it, because I know there are listeners that don't and won't read romance novels ever. he's wearing leather gloves this whole time.
No, one of them came off.
Yeah, but like when he's grabbing on her ass.
Oh, yeah. He's got one bare hand and one leather hand. And she's like, I don't hate either of these things.
Yeah. I was like, the leather
Couple
hand
of different
was like,
sensations.
yeah, curiously working for me. I don't know why. I was
curiously?
Like, well, I don't walk around all day and be like, that guy's pretty hot. But if he was wearing some leather gloves, like that doesn't occur to me.
You don't look at David and say, hey, David, leave your driving gloves on.
Don't bring my personal life into this.
I don't even know if David wears driving gloves. I just imagine that he might because he hunts bears in race cars.
You wear driving gloves for motorcycles.
That makes sense. Yeah, Totally.
He's not a golfer. I just want to be clear on that.
Good for you.
Not that there's anything wrong with golfers.
Stand. No, I'll
when
say
he said
it.
driving gloves, I
it.
thought of golfing, and I was like, "What? Driving gloves?"
That was the one thing in Bachelorette that I was just like, I'm sorry, Bachelor, where I was just like, oh, because when Ari was like,
when what's her name's family was like, "Are you a golfer?" And then they were like, "Oh, he's not."
I know. And then the last night, he was like, I bet your dad could even like talk me into golfing. And she was like, I bet I could talk you into golfing.
Oh,
and,
God.
I was just, golfing.
I just, here's why I corrected myself, is there is a golfer listening who's a good friend of mine who I also dated, and a long, long time ago, and I am dreading the text where he's like, oh, so golfers suck now? Like, this is where you are? So I'm a little bit wary of it. Might even ask you to cut it.
To men who hunt bears in race cars.
Don't say that.
What? Why?
Okay, so after he's done grabbing up on her butt and they're done, she's done. He's like all staggery. They get into a carriage and she realizes he's bleeding profusely.
He's been bleeding the whole time.
He has been stabbed this whole time. Like
he's
a
been
big
slashed.
stab.
It's a
big
slash.
stab. It's a big stab.
It's a big slash.
I don't know how you're going to edit that, but I love it. So she's like, oh my gosh, you're losing so much blood. You're going to die. And you took all that time in that alleyway to sex me up good while you are bleeding profusely.
Yeah, like she goes, what were you thinking? And he goes, I'd rather think we know what I was thinking.
I feel like you are biased because you like this book. Because I know for a fact Melody Carlisle is not down for a torso wound during sex. Because we spent an hour and a half talking about how she's not in episode whatever.
No, you want to know? No, I'll say it. I didn't like that in the Helen K. Diamond book because the first time she was sitting up on him.
Oh, God. We can't do this again. We can't do it again.
The second time, he picked her up against a wall. Yeah. There is no load-bearing situation in this one. He just presses up on her and gives her a little rude DJ action. You know what I'm saying? So
swirl.
There's the swirl. I don't know. Yeah, he didn't like pick her up and toss her over his head and fuck her senseless. There was no thrusting action for him, and she was not thrusting upon him. Although there was a really great moment
she was
where she
definitely
pushes her
grinding
hips back
backward on
and
him,
puts her little butt right up on him, and he did not hate that either. Anyway, no. So first of all, also he's not fully human, so I'm gonna give him the pass.
But this is on his human side.
Yeah, sure. Not fully human. His human side also went 3 flights of stairs down.
I guess. So, they're in the carriage. And,
yes.
And she realizes that he had been stabbed.
Well, right. So then at home, she's like, no, I'm going to take care of this at home. Like, you're going to let me do this for you.
Yeah, he doesn't want her to tend to his wounds.
And so they go up to his rooms and she's like, Archer's rooms. And she lays him down and she's like, why do you have all of this? Like, why do you have all of this medical equipment and everything? Because he's like telling her to get scalpels and sutures and all the things.
Right.
And he's like, well, I trained as a medical doctor. I trained as a surgeon before anything else. And so that's why I have it. And oh man, she starts feeling like really protective over him.
It's nice because there's this sharing that they do about like their past and stuff, but it's also peppered with her stitching him up and like giving him drugs, and he's taking that old timey drug. What is it? Laudanum. Yeah, and he's just like taking swigs of that, and she's like, "You're gonna die," and he's like, "I'm not totally human."
Yeah, I know the dose for me.
Yeah,
but she tells him about the warehouse fire.
It's kind of like a half truth because she basically is like, "Oh, I was playing with matches," sort of thing. And
but she confides in him that it was her fault,
right? And he tells her about his sisters. He says that the thing that the guys were talking about, where he beat up the guy Marvel. Was because that he tried to steal a smooch from his sister. Then he beat the shit out of that guy and he had to flee to America and lay low for a while. But then the flu came while he was in America and killed off all his sisters and his mother. And he got back in time for his twin sister, Elizabeth, to die in his arms. It's very sad. So it's kind of nice they do this sharing thing. Miranda wants to see him without his mask. He says no. He tells her he wanted to marry her because he realized from that meeting in the alleyway 3 years ago that she feared nothing.
And now he feels really selfish that he sucked her into everything. And so he's like, find a house somewhere. I'll get it for you. I'll get you all set up. We'll get an annulment. I'll be good to you, but like you shouldn't be with me anymore. And she tells him about Martin, the guy that she was fencing with that night. They were actually betrothed a while later. And
he left her at the altar.
Yeah, we know that he found out about her ability to control fire or create fire, and he got really scared and fucked off.
Right.
But he doesn't know that. He just knows that he left her at the altar. But then she does tell him that the one thing that she also felt in the alleyway is that he was also a person who wouldn't be afraid of her.
Right.
And that's the other reason that she ended up marrying him. It's fine. Martin gets his. He dies at sea. It's cool.
It's good. He dies in the pirate situation.
And then they both promise not to leave each other.
Yeah, it was very sweet. So then Miranda's hanging out with her sisters. They're shopping, and they're at a shopping dress store, and Victoria walks in. And Miranda's like, "Oh, that's Victoria Archer. That's Archer's non-cousin that was like really weird to me at the ball." And they're like, that's not Archer's cousin. That's Archer's ex-girlfriend. He beat up this guy Marvel over her. And Miranda's like, "Well, I thought he beat up this guy Marvel over his sister. That's what he told me." And so now it's like, she said she's his cousin. He says she's not. They're clearly somebody they've had sex before. Like, and then he's lying to her about it's bad. There's no way out of this where he's not lying to her.
So she decides just to ask Victoria what's going on.
I felt this was a very mature decision that I very much respected her for. She went up to Victoria and she's like, "Hey, let's have tea."
Asked Victoria to tea. So they went and put some clotted cream on some scones and
did British stuff together.
They British together.
Oh, yeah. Also in this scene, Victoria is wearing a tiny top hat. In case anyone was wondering.
Oh, yeah.
One of those steampunk top hats.
Steampunk.
So anyway, Victoria's a total asshole. She's a heinous bitch. She's
real mean.
Yeah, she's real mean to Miranda.
She's who I thought the opera singer was going to be.
Right, in
9 Rules to Break. Yeah.
So she basically is like, he loves me more. He's going to come back to me. I've seen him without his mask on. Oh, he hasn't shown you what he looks like without his mask on?
Yeah, it's a beautiful sight to behold.
Yeah, maybe what he's got on there is like super beautiful. Well, I guess we'll never know. Also, I call him Benji. What's up? Like, it's a lot of that. And she's very forward about how she does still love him and wants him back. So that's a horrible day for Miranda.
The Lady Gauntlet is thrown.
Yeah. Miranda then goes to see her friend Billy.
Because Miranda is now like, I need to step up my investigation.
Right.
I need to figure out what the hell's going on because Archer's not going to help me. This bitch is obviously not going to help me.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to go see if my old friend Billy, who just FYI is one of the urchins who Archer chased off, who was going to like rape her in the street.
Right.
They became friends after a while because he cornered her again a little while later and she promptly set him on fire. And so once he learned his boundaries,
I love it.
He ends up being kind of an okay guy. I mean, he's a flesh peddler and he's a man of ill repute. But he is carrying a big torch for Miranda.
Yeah, and when and she carried a big torch right into him. Also, like when she needed to start stealing, he kind of taught her how to pickpocket and that kind of thing. So she goes to see him on, like, the bad side of town, and she dresses like a man, even though that used to work a little better than it does now.
The jig is sort of up at this point.
Yeah, she asks Billy all about the West Moon Club. He doesn't know about it. She's not getting any answers here, but then she gets cornered by a guy named Black Tom, whose, like, area it is. Mm-hmm. And he's like, what are you doing in my area? Ooh, you're a sexy lady. How about I try to rape you against this lamppost? And she's like...
Yeah, you gotta pay the troll toll.
Yeah. And she's like, and then she incinerates him alive and causes a big fireball.
Yeah, because Sherlock Holmes Times England, like, everything is just...
kindling. Like, everything just goes up in flames because everything's, like, old, dry wood.
And gas lamps.
Yeah, gas lamps. So there's a huge crowd of running people, a huge fire.
She's basically getting trampled.
Yeah. No one... unless I skipped it because I was trying to read very fast. Did Billy get out of this alive?
Yeah, Billy, she saw him get out.
Okay, because I was very like, no one gives a fuck whether Billy lived, apparently. Anyway.
No, he definitely gets away. And then she also gets word from him later that he doesn't know anything about the West Moon Club.
Okay, so go ahead and skip my note. No one gives a shit if Billy lived through this, apparently.
Yes.
So then
Erin didn't give a shit.
I did give a shit. I looked for it, and then I was like, well, I'm not spending any more time on this. So in the chaos, Ian McKinnon
grabs her.
The younger werewolf from the party, grabs her, pulls her out. And he's like, so, turns out you can create fire with your mind, I noticed. And she's like,
no.
Yeah.
You, parlor trick.
And he's like, you're down here because you want to protect Archer? Because you do anything to protect Archer? And she's like, yeah, basically. And he's like, would you do anything? Yeah, and he's like, also blackmail? Yeah. So,
well, and also, they're having this whole conversation with him pressed up against her on a wall.
Yeah, it's gross.
Like, not sexy. Not hot. No. Really, really gross.
Unless you're a little bit into that guy, which I am.
Which apparently Erin is all about.
Okay, so Archer, meanwhile, is going to go find a guy named Dover.
So on the same night,
Archer he's looking for that ring.
The thing that he thought was at the bottom of the ocean after Ellis hit his ship. So he goes to this sailor bar to try to find the first mate of this, or like the captain underneath Ellis of the ship. Find him. They have a whole chat. This guy has been working for Rossberry, or was working for Rossberry the whole time, and Rossberry was just like trying to fuck him over.
Yeah. The ring didn't go down with the ship.
Yeah.
They had the ring and they pawned it off to somebody, they said.
He lost it in a bet.
Right. So, meanwhile, they were like, oh, by the way, we knew you were coming and we're having you kidnapped. Surprise! And then, like, a bag goes over Archer's head and he's dragged off.
And the ale that they gave him was drugged, because there's no way they would have been able to overpower him otherwise. But still, it takes, like, 4 guys to carry him, because he's really heavy.
And he comes to strength in, like, 5 minutes, because he's some kind of super...
Yeah. And they're going to throw him into an incinerator.
Right.
An old-timey, like, coal incinerator.
Yep.
And he promptly sees red, goes to defend himself, and murders them all.
Murderates everyone.
Sort of accidentally.
So he's coming home from his mass murder.
And she is in her bed crying over her one murder.
Right.
And, I mean, other people probably died in that fire. Let's just be honest.
I just thought it was really sweet that, like, they both, like, just murderlated all night. And they just both came home. And he hears her crying, and then he goes into her bed, and they just kind of lay together.
Well, he asks her if she's okay, and she's like, yes, like, I'm okay. If, like, can you... No, it's stupid. And he's like, no, what? What do you need? And she's like, will you stay with me?
Will you just lay with me for a little bit? Yeah. And she tells him about how she was a thief. He already knew that, but then he realizes that he loves her. He loves her. I just loved that neither of them are like, yeah, I had a real hard day of murderlating, you know?
Nobody.
But that's what both of them were going through in the moment, and they were able to share that comfort with each other. Okay, so
next day,
Archer goes out, leaves the house for a while, and
McKinnon stops by.
Yeah. Just happens upon the house while Archer is gone. He wants to do this back and forth where he gets to ask her a question about controlling fires with her mind, and she gets to ask him a question about the West Moon Club. He's also hitting on her pretty hard during this conversation. There's a lot of like...
Yeah, and he's making it clear that, like, although he gave airs otherwise, like, he would never want to take a woman without her consent.
Yeah, like, I mean, he was just joking around about rapes earlier. But, like,
right,
he
casual
strongly
rape
wants
joke.
her to consent to this. Like,
Yeah.
he's very, like, leaning into this.
He would like her to come around.
So he tells her that the West Moon Club, of which all the old dudes in Archer were members, was a club of scientists searching for immortality, and eventually it was Archer that drew the short straw and tried out, like, whatever the thing was, the elixir, the whatever.
Yeah.
And he tried it out, and instead of becoming immortal, he was really deformed, or he did become immortal, and the problem is he's also deformed. Something. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
But, like, that's the situation. So Archer comes home and he sees him there and is real pissed about it because he was there clearly. And he does, like, this show of, like, McKinnon does this show of, like, kissing her hand and being like, ha, 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 I was here without you and I'm hitting on your wife.
Oh, he's, like, really playing up, fixing his clothes.
Yeah.
As if he's putting them back on.
Mm-hmm.
Dick.
Yeah, yeah. And so Archer's pissed, so he fucks off to his greenhouse. And the staff helps Miranda
She goes to find him.
there. And
Boy, howdy. Boy,
this
howdy.
was a real good one.
Oh, man. She's like, you have nothing to be jealous of.
Mhm.
And she, like, crowds him. And he's like, I have work to do. You need to get away from me.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't think
Flower work to do. Come on
that
now.
flowers.
You have $70 million. Like, shut up about your work to do.
Yeah. So she, like, goes up right behind him. And she's, like, breathing in his scent and all the things. Ah, it's so
Mhm.
good.
And they basically talk about how they didn't make out before. They just did tongue stuff. What? and then they do make out. So he's like, she's like, what's your deal? Like, why are you holding back? Are you trying to, like, deprive yourself? And he's like, no, it wasn't about deprivation. It was about preservation.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to hurt her. And then he just, like, he goes in there for a kiss and it is good. He, like, knocks all this shit off his marble table, like all the plants and all that go flying, and he, like,
Puts her up there.
puts her on that table.
And then he's grabbing the edge.
Yeah.
And he literally gets so excited that he breaks the marble top table in half and pulls a piece off in his hand.
Guys, breaks the marble table. That's how sexy he is.
So
breaks the table.
The power of his sexcellence breaks tables.
Mm.
And she looks down and realizes that there are scorch marks on the table because she has actually started fires.
Mm-hmm.
And, or like, you know, she's gotten so overheated. Sex fires! and so, of course, both of them think that they did both things. He's like, I broke the table and somehow set it on fire. And she's like, I set the table on fire and also broke it.
And so she just runs off, super embarrassed.
Yeah, because she's mortified.
And he thinks she runs off in fear. Like, it's just a big old misunderstanding. And a misunderstanding that I thought was pretty fair. Usually these misunderstandings, I'm like, ugh. But I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So then Archer noticed in the library that McKinnon was wearing his fucking ring.
Yeah.
So he's like, you know what? I'm going to work off this frustration by going to get that ring from McKinnon. So he goes into McKinnon's house, but he has to wait down in his library because McKinnon is fucking a redheaded lady.
Yeah, he went and picked up a lady that looks just like Miranda because he had to bone it out with somebody.
Stand-in.
Yep. Had to bang it out with some redhead.
So good.
So he sees that girl just, like, walk out, and he's like, oh, okay. And then he just kicks the shit out of McKinnon, which is kind of satisfying.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a real knockdown, drag-out fight because werewolves and not vampires are extra strong.
But at this point, again, I'm still all in for vampire. I'm like, that's definitely what's going on here. Okay, so then he explains, so he takes the ring. There's this inner monologue where he explains the origins of the ring. It doesn't super matter, but his mom gave a moon ring to his twin sister because she was born at night, and a sun ring to him because he was born in the day. He gave the moon ring to Miranda for her engagement ring, and this here is the sun ring. So he opens it up. There's a little secret compartment in there, and there's a little message from some guy that worked with him and, like, went to Egypt to go find the cure for whatever it is, the thing that he has, and he knows that there's a secret message with the cure in this ring. But the secret message is not a cure. It's a solution. Who knows what that means?
Nobody,
us.
not us.
So he's pretty disappointed.
But we're very intrigued, and he is very disappointed.
Right. So then we clip to some investigators that are looking at a murder that was on Archer's property. Another old dude. This time it's Merriweather.
They're just dropping like flies, these old dudes.
Yeah. These old botanists.
Mm-hmm.
These West Moon Club botanists. So his ears are cut off. So now we've got a eye, a tongue, and an ear.
Yeah.
What was that? Eno, hear, no. Eo, beer, no.
I said see no hero. I don't know why.
And see no hero?
See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Don't worry, guys. I got it. I'm better at doing it in monkey emojis.
So there's a masquerade ball, which always happens in Sherlock Holmes Times. Yeah. There's a masquerade. She goes as the moon. He goes as the night. He just wears his normal outfit. He's like the guy who goes out and has his self for like Halloween. That's him. McKinnon dances with her, and he tells her that his father is volatile and he's not right in the head, and that he wants Archer dead.
And he's after Archer. Yeah.
His dad being Rosdale, the other werewolf. Rosdale? Rosberry. I definitely wrote Rosdale in my note. Yeah, so Rosberry corners her after that because he saw his son dancing with her, and he's basically like, what did my son tell you? Did my son tell you like anything bad about me, or like what's the deal? She's just like, I'm not talking to you about that. So she gets away from him, and then like I think is somebody a lady says, hey, if you want, I noticed that your hair's coming undone, you can go upstairs.
Yeah, because he super shook her. Yeah, and her pins came out. So she was like, I don't want to go to the ladies' room because everybody will think that Archer shook me. I'm not trying to make him look like a wife beater as well. So she goes up to their private rooms up the stairs. Archer at this point has been getting her some punch.
Right.
And he hears this really eerie, like, Miranda from upstairs. Right. And immediately goes to figure it out and get like in between her and whoever's making that sound.
But she's fine. She's just wandering around upstairs.
She's scared. She hears the same thing. There's like an eerie door opening. There's a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
And they hug, and she's like, ah, and he's like, we're going home. Yeah. She's like, excellent. So they go out to the coach, and he puts her up in the coach, and then all of a sudden the coach just takes off
with a cackle
down the road. Yeah, the same killer cackle again from the stairway.
The masked killer. And so the coach takes off, and she's bouncing around in there. She wants to like incinerate the killer, but she can't do it from inside the coach. And then she sees Archer running just as fast as the coach is going.
Yeah, and she's like, surely no human could do that. And then he leaps up onto the top of the coach.
Fucking newsflash, Miranda. He's not a human. Like, Miranda, like, what do you need? You've got a carnival mask. He's jumping down the swirly gig and the stairs. He's moving at lightning speed. Like, what do you want? Like, this guy.
Oh my God. When we read the swirly gig scene, so I used to have a regular D&D group, and it just really reminded me of this one encounter that we had because there was this guy, he rolled a 1, which is like a fatal error in D&D, and he was like, what happens to me? It's like, you break both ankles. And everybody was like, what? Because we were in the middle of the fight, and he was our like mauler guy. Anyway,
you know what that happened on The Bachelor one time. Did you know this?
Yeah. No.
So this was not shown, I don't think, on The Bachelor, but like, when, God, I hope that I get this right. When that girl Rosalind fell in love with one of the cameramen, and Chris Harrison had to like pull her out and be like, we know you've been boning the crew member. Yeah. Remember that?
He jumped off the balcony.
He jumped out of like a 3rd-story window and broke both of his ankles trying to get away when they caught them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happens to mere mortals, Miranda.
Yeah, exactly. He's not human. So anyway, he chases the coach down. He jumps on top of the coach. He fights the killer on top of the coach. And then they scramble off onto the gravel, and then it's like it runs away, and she's thrown from the coach into the forest. And he's fighting the killer, and the killer, they're like evenly matched. And then the killer's like, on the new moon.
Oh, they're not evenly matched. The killer is far stronger.
Okay, the killer is far stronger. But
yeah.
But then the killer is like, on the new moon, come to the cavern and we're gonna finish this shit. And then just cackles off into the night.
Or else Miranda gets it.
Or else
dun,
also
dun,
Miranda
dun.
dies. I didn't remember that part, but like,
yeah, and then he squiggles his mustache a little bit like a Sherlock Holmes villain
and
would.
Cackles off into the night.
Yeah.
So then Archer goes and finds Miranda, and she's totally fine.
Well, she's stuck under the coach, and he lifts the entire coach off of her.
Yeah.
And it's so good.
Don't worry. She's fine.
Yeah. She's good to go.
So Archer goes and talks to Leland. Turns out they were best friends growing up together.
Super besties.
So looks like
they
Archer.
Were at Eton together.
Yeah. So Leland's like 90. So it turns out Archer's probably like 90. Like, it's not explicitly said, but like they went to college together.
Like,
but
how
like,
were they BFFs?
Yeah, exactly. Turns out Archer drank the potion that was supposed to make everybody immortal, and Leland was supposed to drink the potion, but he like saw what was going on with Archer when he chugged it down, and he was like, fuck no, and he just took like a sip of it. And that's why he's 90 and super spry, but like they were both supposed to drink it together. So they look at the knife note, the ring note, and it says where a super special knife is hidden. They go to this cavern, which is probably the same cavern that the killer met. When they said to...
No, it's definitely the same cavern.
Yeah.
They talk about the old ritual. They talk about how she was attracted to the cavern because of the great power. And it turns out it's this sword because it's supposedly forged in the river or the lake of the Egyptian the Egyptian lake of fire /
in
druids. The underworld.
Like every once in a while here they're like, but maybe druids, and like that never matters or comes back.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, Archer, we're going to have to kill you with this sword so that we can... And it's basically a thing of like, they'll kill him, but then he won't lose his soul. And if they don't kill him, he's going to lose his soul. So at this point, I'm like, are you a vampire? Because I'm like, not sure now. Because what is this about? We have to stab you with a sword to save your soul. I don't understand.
Well, and I thought it was a really cool detail. Because he goes to grab the sword, and like the side of his body that's changed, he talks about his changed side that is like shivering and it's hating it and it doesn't want anything to do with the sword. But then his other side, his human side, is like relieved when he grabs this sword.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
He gives it to Leland, and he's like, "You keep this for like when it's time to murder me." Okay.
Yeah.
So
they find out that at the ball.
Yeah.
John Coachman was murdered.
And that's how the killer took the place of John Coachman, who is the coachman. Yes. It's easy to figure out who he is. He was the coachman. So he's murdered with Miranda. He had her cloak next to him.
And her mask.
Yeah, and her mask. They don't find that out until later, though.
Right.
But so the inspector comes back, this time to question Miranda, to be like, are you a murderer? But like everybody knows she's not.
He knows that. It's her sister-in-law. It's a sister-in-law. And so then they have a whole talk.
She point blank is like, Archer, are you immortal? Because like, I heard you drank this potion. And he's like, Miranda, I am not immortal. Check out, this is a gravestone of my grandfather. Like, this is my grandfather's gravestone. He is not me. But like, Archer's a fucking liar. He's lying to her.
Lying liar who lies. But he does get real mad, and he's like, I won't have you killed. I won't.
Yeah, and that's just like, I feel like pretty confusing for Miranda, because she's just like, I asked you a question, and that really didn't have anything to do with it.
Why are you yelling at me?
Yeah, so she's like, I don't want to come to dinner. He's being real weird. He's taking me to gravestones that are relevant. And he gets a note from Leland that says, it can be done, L. Oh. And I'm like, yeah. Like, didn't they figure that out beforehand? Like,
well, he had to consult some texts, Erin.
Oh, I didn't realize he was consulting texts.
Ancient texts.
I thought they were pretty sure it could be done earlier, so I was just like, what can be done, Leland? And then it turns out it's the thing that they were already talking about.
Yeah.
All right, so he finds her playing backgammon alone. Not sexy, but they make it sexy.
They do.
They start playing backgammon. They start talking about why they haven't sexed each other and how they've been pretty good at avoiding each other's advances.
Oh.
You wanna take this one?
Do I?
It seems like you do. But anyway, so they talk
good.
about like, all right, they're going to do the sex. Because he decided he wants to do sex to her because like he realized she could die when she got thrown from that coach, and that really freaked him out. But he doesn't want her to see any of his parts that are deformed. So he's like, I will come to you at midnight, make yourself ready, wash your vagina, turn out all the lights, no lights, and we're going to do sex. And she's like, fine by me. So she's ready to go at midnight. She's like, it's all dark in there. He comes in. He can see in the dark. Don't worry. Totally human. Fine. And they start doing the sex, and she can't stand it anymore. She's like, okay, I know how to make this room super bright without lighting any lamps, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to see what his face looks like. So she makes the room all bright, and he freaks out and scurries into the corner. And now we get to see what Archer looks like.
He is. She turns on the lights. He scurries into the corner like an animal who's been caught, because he is.
And that's when she sees that all the parts of him that are covered are like white, gleaming marble.
Translucent.
Yeah.
Like glass almost. And he's a light demon.
Yeah. A soul eater.
A soul eater. So he drank this elixir thinking that he would become like a light angel and they would become immortal. But what actually happens is that he would need to feed off of the light of souls by cutting out people's hearts and ingesting them.
Right.
Yikes.
Yeah. So, and once it permeates it, like it's growing in his body, and once it permeates his heart, then he's gotta eat the souls. But so right now it's permeated like half of his face and like part of his chest and like his ding dong, but like not.
Yeah, the proud length of his.
Yeah, it's all
erection.
White and translucent, guys. So it turns out they're in love, and now they have lots of sex, and she's cool with it. They're
so in love. I can't even tell you. I literally have 4 pages highlighted from this thing, because also I'm not usually into like sobbing as a prelude to sex. And somehow that worked for me too.
Yeah,
here.
He just starts crying, and she's
because
like,
she's
cool.
like, you have me. I'm in love with you. No matter what you look like, I want you, and I still want you.
If you're like hungry for souls.
Yeah, I want that translucent peen right up in me.
Yeah, get it.
Like, let's just do this. And he starts sobbing because he's so relieved. And he like falls into her bosom, and they fall onto the floor, and he's like crying, and she's comforting him. Yeah. And then it is super on.
Now it's on.
And he pushes her down onto the floor, and he's like, I'll try to be gentle. And she understands, and she's like, I mean, I've done this before. And he goes, not with me. And woo, dang.
Well, and also he realizes her thing too, that she can make fire, because that happened. Yeah. And so like they're totally understanding each other. They're like ready to go. And they make that harder, faster joke from before. They do it all night. Because he's got lots of angel demon stamina now, so he can just keep going all the time. They do it so much that the sheets begin having actual steam coming off of them.
So much and so well.
Yeah.
Because she is actually like, combusting a little bit. They
good.
do it like 18 times in a matter of about 5 hours.
Right. Yeah.
No, 12 hours.
Yeah. She calls him Ben. It's nice.
Yeah.
So then the next thing that happens is he gets a box that has Meriwether's ear in it. And there's a note in there that's like, BTW, Archer, new moon, cavern. And he's like, I know. Like, you don't need to send me an ear in the mail to remind me. Like, I remember, but whatever. The next thing that happens is she gets a box from McKinnon. And it's got a photo of Archer in 1815 in it. And he's a young man.
Fucking liar.
And I don't remember what year it is now, but it is a lot of years after that. And now she knows.
Roughly 90.
That. Yes. Now she knows that he's immortal. And so she comes up to him again and is like, you're immortal, motherfucker. You didn't tell me. And she's like real mad. And he's like, I love you. And then they make up. Okay. Yeah. So she wakes up the next day to a note that just says, forgive me. And she's like, fuck, he's gone to confront the killer. And then she has this whole internal monologue of like, what's the killer? What's a light demon? How do we do this? How do I find him? How do I figure this out? And then she's like,
who wears a lot of makeup because they might have a skin condition?
Who
Victoria
is covering all her translucent light demon skin with foundation?
Mad.
Victoria the bitch, who would be mad that we're married and that he's back in town and he's got a sexy redhead lady. Victoria the bitch. So, she's like, I gotta go find Victoria. So she puts on her fencing clothes. She gets a gun. She gets a sword. She goes to Leland's house because she's like, Leland probably knows what's up.
You always go to the BFF, Erin.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. So she like storms into his, so she's like, hey, butler, I need to talk to Leland. She
holds him at knife point.
The butler's like, Leland's not in at the moment. And she's like, fuck you. Goes into the house, holds Leland up at knife point. The butler comes back up behind her and she just pulls a gun out with her other hand, points it at him. And she's like, I'm a good aim.
And also, your master will get throat slitted in an altercation. So back the fuck up.
So she's like, tell me where Archer is. And he's like, you could have asked.
And she's like, props not, I couldn't have.
I'm in a hurry. And so Leland is like,
this is where we find out all. We find out all the backstory, and I love that it's via dialogue.
But here's the thing. She's like, tell me where Archer is. And he's like, you know what? Let's slow down. Let's go have a tea.
Why didn't I tell you the story?
Let's hang out in the salon for a while. We have some time. And I'm like, what? What do you mean we have some time? I'm still very confused about this because I'm like, the light thing is going to his heart. He's gonna demon out. He's gonna start eating souls at any moment. We don't have time, Leland. But he tells her the whole story of how they had the West Moon Club and they wanted to find a way to cure men of all diseases, and they were doing it with botany and they were doing it with science. And then all of a sudden, this light angel came around.
Walks into one of their secret meetings. Just walks in.
Yeah, translucent.
Casual, like.
Marble lady walks in and she's like, oh, hey guys, I'm a light angel.
I can make all your dreams come true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm immortal. Do you guys want to be immortal? And they're all like, yeah, that's like the whole point of this club.
Right. We're not raping or murdering. Right. We're just trying to find out how not to die.
Yeah. And she's like, you know who I like the best? You, Archer, and you, Leland. So how about both of you come have sex with me all the time? But she really mostly liked Archer, which made Leland so upset. And then she chose those two to drink the elixir, but only Archer did because he's the most bravest and she's in love with him.
Well, and because he was in a metric fuck ton of pain and runs out. And so Leland was about to drink the rest of it, but she's like, he's my true mate. He'll be back. And he's like, aw, you don't love me.
Yeah, it was very sad for Leland.
And so he only had one sip, which is why he's 90 in England times, in Sherlock Holmes times. And,
thank you.
And normally, you're welcome. And he's outlived all of his children and one grandchild. And this is where we also find out that they don't know exactly what's up with Rossberry and his pup. But they do know that he's like 130 years old.
Yeah.
And McKinnon is the same age as Archer.
Right.
Well, the same age as all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But without drinking any of the elixir.
Right.
Dun, 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 dun. Read Moonlight by Kristen Callihan.
So, yeah. So then they're like, all right, let's go to the cavern. I think at some point, Miranda's like, by the way, I control fire. Don't worry about me.
Yeah, because he's like, you little woman, you can't go.
Right.
And she's like, bitch, I will set you on fire.
Yeah.
And so they promptly get on horses because
guess what? I didn't
not
need.
dumb.
I didn't need a sword at all. I could have just poofed you. Okay, so
yeah, poof.
She takes the sword. They go to the cavern.
Mm-hmm.
They go into the cavern, and Archer's laying on the black slab altar. He's naked. He's all white. He's ready to eat souls. Any moment, he might wake up and start chomping on those souls.
And he will crave Miranda's soul the most because he's so in love with her.
Loves that soul. So then...
Loves it.
So then, Victoria is there. And also,
Victoria's like, I won.
Yeah. He came back to me. And then she sees Rossberry the werewolf. He's dead.
He's been et.
His soul has been eaten. And Victoria's like, all right, I'm going to kill you, Miranda, but also Leland, hang out because I am still hungry and I need more old man souls to eat. So she's like, she tells Miranda that like, yeah, she's the winner and Archer is her true love and she's going to myrtlate her. And then Miranda's like, no, you're not going to myrtlate me. I'm going to cut off your arm with this sword right now.
With this sword. Okay, so can also I say, like, Kristen Callihan does some amazing shit in this book, but all of the fighty time is like top tier fighty time, you know? Yeah. And it's like quick usually, and it's fast paced, and like my heart is beating out of my chest.
I thought it was Miranda's fucking arm. Like, I thought Miranda got her arm cut off because it's just basically like a slice, and then Miranda looks down and there's an arm there, and I'm like, oh, she got her arm cut off. Except that it
shattered like glass.
Yeah, well, then it shattered, and then it was fine.
Right.
Then I got it.
Yeah. So it's so good. So they do some fighty times. Victoria is real aghast at not having an arm anymore.
She hates it.
So bad.
Hates it.
Unreasonably mad. And then she comes after her again. She knocks Miranda around. And Miranda's like, so feeble, human body must keep going. And she puts the sword right into Victoria's chest. And Victoria's like pushing her up against a wall. And Miranda's like telling the sword to burn and sending burns into her body. Yeah. And she almost loses it. But then just off of like over Victoria's shoulder, she sees Archer's prone, translucent, beautiful, soul-eating body. And she's like, no, must save the day. So she burns this motherfucker down. Yeah. Like literally makes Victoria into a pile of ash, like in embers, and disintegrates the sword. Totally. And like the sword is gone.
Oh shit. Because her plan was she was going to murder up Archer to save his soul. Yeah. Now the sword's gone.
Gotta murder him.
So now we don't know what to do.
Do it.
Can I just say quickly? Miranda, I know that Victoria's not a vampire, but like close, right? And Miranda, even though no one schooled her on where to stab a vampire, knew right where to go.
Knew right
where to go. So listen, shades of vampires. That's not an instruction that's necessary. Okay, so.
Fair.
Then she's gone. The sword's gone. She needs to do something about Archer. She's like, hey, Leland, it's been...
No, so Leland is like, we got to get you out of here because he's going to eat your soul. And she's like, no, I was never leaving in the first place.
It's good.
My place is with him.
Yeah. And Leland's like, he's going to eat your soul. And she's like, yeah, I want my soul to get eaten by Archer. True love, guys. She's like, that's where my soul belongs.
Yeah, he should just ingest it because it's with him anyway.
Oh. So Leland's like, okay, I'll just go.
You're a crazy bitch. Gotta go. So she snuggles right up with Archer and she's like, you know what? I wonder if I could, because, Leland said something in an earlier chapter that was really telling on my second read, which was that Victoria always seemed a little skeeved out by fire. So she snuggles right up with Archer and she thinks to herself, purify. And these crazy white blue flames,
just the hottest flames.
Oh, and she grabs his mouth and she blows hot air into him so that she can cook him from the inside and the outside. And she's just thinking to herself, purify us both.
It's like when you do the clean function on an oven. It's like way hotter than a normal oven, and it just burns down everything in that oven. Don't do that, by the way, guys. No one ever push clean on an oven. Don't ever do that. Just clean the oven manually.
What? I had to do it. I had to do it just now. At Christmas time. We just did it overnight because I tried to clean out my pie filling, went all over the bottom of the oven, and it was like a fuck off pie filling. It was not playing around. And so I had to do the cleaning function because I had so much. I had to cook all of Christmas dinner the next day in the same oven. So I was just like, we got to do it.
That cleaning function is rough.
I turned that bitch to cinders. Anyway.
All right.
Okay. So she does the same thing to Archer and she's like, my clothes are burning off, but I'm not burning. And up until this point, she's been like, I have to be really careful with fire because I am not immune to fire. Up until this point, I've been like, that seems really fucked up. Like as a superpower, being able to create fire, but also getting burned by it. Fucking rude.
Yeah.
But apparently if you think purify, the fire just gets it. And it's like, oh, we're going to do mystical shit and not like burny shit. Yeah. So his translucentness starts seeping out of all of his pores. He just starts sweating the toxins out. And he's writhing and he's moaning and he's in so much pain and she's in so much pain, but she's like, we've got to do this together because love. And when she comes to, both of them are bare ass naked, but gorgeous humans again.
Yep, and he's just a sexy Italian stallion now.
Get it.
And then...
and she does.
Yeah, and then she gets it. And then there's the epilogue, and they're dancing at a ball, and she's like, they're still staring at us. And he's like, yeah, because I'm so handsome.
Because I'm a fucking sexy beast.
Yeah.
They're like, how did this wretch get such a sexy beast? And she's like, you're still so charming.
So funny.
Which he is. Let's be honest.
Right. So, and that's the end.
Yeah. That is the end.
Thank you for listening to this 5.5 hour podcast. You could just listen to the Audible version of this book and it would be less time. Probably.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. So, do you have a lady lurve?
Kind of. So, hey guys, I know that there are at least a couple of you out there that are adult 30-something women like me who still watch Grey's Anatomy. We don't want to. None of us want to. I can't think of one character on that show. I actually tried today when I was thinking about this. I can't think of one character on that show that I like. Or a storyline that I'm enjoying watching. There's nothing about it I enjoy.
Oh my God.
I can't stop. I don't know why. I can't stop.
Interesting.
One of the features of Grey's Anatomy also is that they're terrible at being doctors. They're really bad doctors. And so when I heard that there was going to be a new Shondaland style or created show about United States prosecutors and public defenders, I got so happy, because if there's anything missing from Grey's Anatomy and the characters I hate and the storylines I hate and them being terrible doctors, it's them also being terrible lawyers. So you guys, ladies, if any of you are still stuck watching Grey's Anatomy and you hate it, may I introduce to you For the People, which is the same show, but they're terrible at being lawyers, and you will hate watching that. And it's just so great. It's such a great, it's everything you wanted Grey's Anatomy to be, but just lawyers. Anyway, it made me feel so happy. It's a terrible show.
For the People.
Really, honestly terrible. For the People. They should all be fired.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, I did watch the inaugural episode.
You did?
And
do you love how they all show up for their new job on the same day? For some reason, there's 6 new U.S. attorneys that are like, we're all going to get sworn in and the judge is going to give a speech.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ridiculous. You know how I got sworn in? I just went to like some guy's office and he was like, where are you here for? I'm like, sworn in. And he's like, okay, just sign this paper. That's how you get sworn in.
Oh my God. Really?
Yes. And you're not there with other people. There's not like a batch. It's not like that. Anyway, so in the first 5 minutes, I was like, yes.
That's amazing. Well, and for the first 2 seasons, it's not going to go off the rails yet.
It's already so far off the rails.
Not for a layperson.
The prosecutors and the defense attorneys are sleeping together in the middle of trials. They had, there was a terrorism case where a guy tried to bomb the Statue of Liberty and it somehow went to trial in 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
That takes 5 years. Easy.
Oh, yeah.
3 days
yeah, that's
now.
True.
Anyway, yeah, it's already off the rails. It's a crazy train that I'm on. I love it.
Mm-hmm. What is my lady love? I mean, I fell asleep in the bath today.
That's not a good idea. People die that way.
Yeah. It's not great.
Can that be it? Don't fall asleep in the bathtub.
Actually, yes. My lady love for today is don't fall asleep in the bathtub. Because
how did you
put
wake
on
up?
A face mask.
Did you fall under the water?
No, not at all. My bathtub isn't huge. And so I have to be a little bit shrimpified in order to get my tits under the water. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't really anywhere for me to move. But it was rather disorienting to be like I'm in the bath and the jerky movements that you make when you're asleep are immediately huge splashes. Right. Normally you'd be like, whoa, what was that weird thing that just happened with my arm? And this time you were like, oh, I'm a walrus.
Right.
Just so, yeah.
All right. There you go.
Don't do that, guys.
Don't do that. All right. You can find us on Facebook.
Instagram.
You can find us on both. Facebook, Heaving Bosoms Podcast. Instagram, @Heaving Bosoms. Twitter, @Heaving_Bosoms. heavingbosoms@gmail.com. Are we anywhere else?
No.
Join the Facebook group, Heaving Bosoms Geriatric Friendship Cult. There you go. Do that.
It's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Because the ladies are really taking the discussions to the next level up there, and it's super fun.
Yeah.
And so keep being a badass.
And love yourself as much as you love jumping down the swirly gig of the stairs 3 stories. And not breaking your ankles.
Yeah, no broken ankles up in here. All right. Bye, Erin.
Bye now.
Hey, you. Yes, listener, you. Are you loving the show? If so, please leave a rating and review in your podcast app. The 90 seconds you take to say something nice not only helps new people find the show, but it makes me super smile over at HBHQ. Also, I've had a few people ask, and the answer is yes. We are still doing the 5-star bribe. If you leave us a review with 5 stars, then we'll do whatever book you want. We're real deep into the list, though, so it might be a while. Lilas! Okay, back to the show.